basketball history. I'm joined today by Greg Pearson and Kerry Paps, President and Vice President of Myths and Legends Australia. Thanks for coming along, gents. We're keen to have a chat with you today about this year's Bulleen Annual Masters Basketball Tournament. Starting with you, Greg, tell us about this year's tournament. Where and when will the tournament be held?
Sure, thanks, George. The tournament's going to be held at the Bulleen Stadium in Sheehan's Road, where it has been held since its inception. It's going to be held the same time, 6th and 7th of July, which is the middle week of the school holidays. So that's the time that suits most people to be able to go. So, yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Well, you mentioned the inception of the tournament, and we'll have a chat to Kerry a bit later on about some of the history. But in the meantime, what grades can people register in, both the men's and women's, this year round?
Sure. So we've got two age groups in the men's. So we've changed that a little. They're both handicapped, but the first age group's from 40 to 55. And within that age group, there's two grades. So there's A grade for the better teams and B grade for the more domestic type teams. And the same in the 55 and over male age group. There's an A and B grade as well. In addition to that, we've got a women's grade, which is from 35 up, and that's handicapped as well. And we've also got the over 70s half court grade. And in addition to that, this year we're introducing for the first time the walking basketball grade as well, which is a mixed grade. It plays full court and it plays to those walking basketball grade rules.
Great. One of the most frequently asked questions about the Bulleen tournament is the handicap. For the record, how does the handicap work?
Without getting too complicated, it's simply you add up the ages of everyone that's playing in that team, and then you get the average age. And the difference between the average age of your team and the team you're playing with, against, I should say, the older team gets in points. So, you know, there's an incentive there to incorporate some older players in your team because they actually give you extra points before you even start. So they definitely earn their place.
Right. And we might get you to just touch on some of the most important tournament rules.
Sure. Well, the main rules, we're sort of playing pretty much to normal rules. The clock will be stopping at the last minute of the first half and the last 2 minutes of the second half. They're 20-minute halves. It's normal rules as most people play at domestic and most tournaments.
If people register to compete, they can register either as a team or an individual. So how does registration work firstly? And then if you are registering as an individual, what's the process behind the scenes which puts teams of individuals together?
Sure. So the first bit, if you register as a team, then the person that's registered that team gets a code through the Play HQ portal, and they will be able to send that off to all the people that they want to have play in their team, and they can register on that link. If you're registering as an individual, as you said, we will get those registrations in, and we will allocate those players into respective teams. And we'll talk to the people that are concerned about that, but it's about balancing the teams out. So the club will probably have a good sort of, I don't know, 4 or 5 teams in the actual competition through the various grades. And we'll just allocate people that want to play into those teams. So when you register as a player, incurs a $50 cost for the tournament. That's your actual tournament fees, providing you're registered with Play HQ. If you haven't ever registered with Play HQ, Basketball Victoria take out, I think it's $40 at this point in time for a year's subscription to Play HQ, and that'll allow you to register for any other competition, and it also covers you for all your insurance whilst you're playing in any Basketball Victoria sanctioned event.
Great. We had a record number of teams at last year's tournament. Greg, who were some of the teams that competed last year that you want to see back this time around?
Well, obviously, we'd like to see them all come back. Everyone that competed, we had 25 teams. There's over 230 participants that played. Within those teams, we have some, very highly skilled, some ex-NBL players, as well as we have some people that just love the sport and just want to compete. And so we're happy for anyone that's competed before to compete again, as also to bring along extra people if they want.
This year we've put on a dinner on the Saturday night, and players and their supporters and families are welcome to join us for the dinner. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about this year's dinner before we flip over to Kerry to think about talk about some of the history of the tournament.
Saturday night, 7 p.m. at the Tempe Hotel, which is very close to where the Sheen Road Stadium is. Everyone's welcome. Obviously we'd just like to know who's coming, just to give the hotel a little bit of a heads up. But, recent tournaments, for example, like at Korumburra, the dinner on the Saturday night at the local pub, there was well over 100 people that came along to those dinners, and they're really good nights just for everyone to get together and have a good yak. So, and also potentially plan teams for, Pan Packs and other tournaments, and it's just good storytelling opportunity.
Thanks heaps, Greg. Over to you, Kerry. Be great to talk a little bit about the history of the tournament. How many years has the tournament been running now?
Hey, George, thanks for that. It started about 30 years ago. Over a committee meeting, they were looking for a fundraising, and Jack Gibson mentioned it to Don Roberts. What about if we run a tournament? And I thought that was a great idea. Well, Don Roberts highly involved with Bulleen Basketball Association, so you recommend that we use their courts, and that started about 30 years ago. And 20 years ago, we got our first women's team in a competition, and that's been running well since then.
You mentioned Don Roberts, you mentioned Jack Gibson, but who else was around in those early years as the tournament was forming and then evolving?
Well, obviously Ian Farr, our ex-president, Trevor Davies, life member of our club, who passed away about 10, 12 years ago. He was highly involved. He was a butcher, so he used to supply all the sausages, and we used to have his little sausage sizzle during in between games, and that went down really well. And those four guys basically started the tournament.
Along the years, Kerry, we've seen some amazing players compete at the Bulleen Annual Masters. Perhaps you can rattle off a few of those names.
Yeah, just top of my head, players like Andrew Parkinson, Stephen Lenardon, Shane Bright, Dave Simmons was there. He rolled up a couple of times. You got Warren Escort, Darren Lucas. There's some of the names. They're the younger guys, and the little bit older guys like Kenny Burbidge, Ian Farr, obviously, Frankie Jones, Jack Gibson, and Riley, which I can't think of his surname at the moment. But players like that are just amazing just to come and watch and to build our tournament.
Yeah, that'd be Rolly Holcomb. Otherwise, a regular feature of the tournament is the over 75s game. And for those who don't know, if scheduling permits, we try and make sure there's no other games going on when we have the over 75s game. And it's a really special opportunity to be able to cheer on some of the greats of Australian basketball and some of our oldest members. Kerry, perhaps we'll get you to speak to that celebration of a lifetime in basketball that we try and make sure everyone's part of.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good idea, because that's how we all became masters, watching these guys playing. And, like most of us, if you play at a high level or domestic, you play to about 30, 33, and then you think that your career's over. Then you see all these guys running around, and just gives you another life. But I think it's important to sit there and just watch what they can do. And they still have it. Maybe not as quick as they used to be, but they've still got the skills, and they can still score 30, to 40 points each game, which is, I think it's amazing. But I think it's very important, yes, George, for sure, to go and watch these guys play, because they're the ones who brought us into the club.
A memorable moment for you, Kerry, a time that you look back on, a tournament, thing that happened, or a funny story along the way that you'd like to share with us?
Just watching, like we just saying, talking about the 75s, we're watching them at their peak or their masters when they were playing in the 55s to 60, just the standard of the game. You just sit back and just go, geez, I wish I can move like that. I wish I can run like Frank when I'm at his age, and so it sort of just gives you a bit of inspiration to keep going. But watching these guys playing, it's just a different level to what we're used to playing, and no, that's sort of my highlight.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kerry. Probably to both of you now, some questions about Masters basketball. And Greg, you mentioned earlier on the Korumburra tournament, a very successful Squizzy Classic run by the Wildcats down at Korumburra. It was their highest participation rate yet. How did you both compete in the, how was your weekend away at the Squizzy Classic? Starting with you, Greg.
Look, well, Kerry and I actually played in the same team. So, look, it was a really good tournament. We actually did pretty well considering, like, we sort of we lost half our team essentially after the Saturday, and still ended up in the grand final, and we were quite competitive with a team full of guards, which Kerry and I are both pretty used to doing. That most of our Masters career being played with a lot of short people. But look, it was a great tournament. There's some good competitive teams there for us to play against, and some real talent. And you're mentioning some of those names, like Dave Simmons, and even Big Paul Dow, and Roger. I can't think of Roger's surname. We play against him on Thursday night. It was really good competition, and we had a really good run. We enjoyed it. We came second, but the club actually had a whole lot of teams down there, women as well as men. So it was a really good representation. It was good.
It was great that you mentioned Roger. He's recently sat through an interview with us, and we'll be releasing that at some point in time. Kerry, you could only play the Saturday down at the Squizzy Classic. How was that day for you?
Oh, it's great to get back into basketball. The last couple of years I've been with injuries, and it's just good to be able to sort of play without any pain, and I really enjoyed it. And then when we walked in, I seen Dave Simmons there, and I go, this is great for the tournament. And we loved it. Obviously the guys went to the grand final. That was really good to hear. A good bunch of guys. Really enjoy these tournaments, catching up with everyone, just because of my coaching commitments, I don't get to go to the after functions and that sort of things I miss on the social side for sure.
Well, Kerry, you're usually very understated about those coaching commitments and achievements. Congratulations to you. You've just coached your 500th men's and women's basketball game in Victoria. I'm pretty sure that is an all-time record for Victorian basketball. It's probably an interview in itself, your coaching journey, but for today, it'd be great to hear about your long-standing efforts coaching teams and the commitment that you've made to the sport through that coaching lens.
Thanks, George. I did start coaching, head coach back in 1999, but I did an apprenticeship 3 years with Keilor Thunder, which my first coach was Peter Fleming, and then Mark Lindell, which a lot of our members would know. And then Scott Del Zoppo, he was my third coach, and I did my apprenticeship under these guys. And I went and coached the first team, Coburg Giants, which a couple of our several members used to play for Giants, so that was good. Yeah, I've coached some fantastic players along the way, most of good people, and I've been blessed with the teams that I've sort of coached. You have your highs and lows, but I've had a couple of championships, and it's hard to get, and I've had a couple of losing seasons, but I'm really enjoying it. If I can keep coaching for another 100 games, I'll still be happy. But at the moment, I love it, and I'll just keep coaching, hopefully.
And perhaps you could share a bit of a tip with me, Kerry. I know that from time to time you've coached your partner, Julia Sant, and I try telling my wife what to do and it just doesn't work. So how do you go coaching your wife from time to time?
Well, I don't coach her. I've coached women's. Everybody wants me to coach Masters. I've coached one women's team in Geelong, and I never coached the game. So no, when you coach, it's pretty tough. No, I wouldn't coach Julia. There's no way I would tell her what to do for sure.
Yeah, that's probably very good advice. Greg, you're always working on things for Myths and Legends. Perhaps you could just touch on a couple of the things that you're excited about right now.
Oh, sure. Look, George, the club's sort of probably moving into an era where we're trying to position not ourselves, but we're trying to position Masters basketball a bit more nationally, and as a standalone sort of competition or way we're going to do that. There's a lot of elite players that are playing Masters basketball, and you would have gathered this from the interviews that you've been doing, that are really thirsty and hungry for a proper organised competition, between whether it's other states or other big Masters clubs. So it's about trying to sort of pull all the people around a table to get this sort of stuff happening, ultimately with the view of sort of internationally probably getting Masters basketball a little bit more into Australia. So whether that's through FIMBA or FIBA or whatever, but we're putting a lot of energy into sort of trying to come up with a bit of strategic planning that's unified with the main Masters clubs around the country. So that's exciting. It's good.
Yeah. Greg, a word of encouragement to those people who have either experienced the tournament or have never played in this particular tournament. What words would you have to try and get people out of their lounge rooms and out of their usual weekend activities and down to Bulleen on the 6th and 7th of July?
Look, Masters basketball, as the three of us all know, is just a wonderful thing to participate in. It's not only a ball of fun, but it also, socially gets you involved with a lot of people. But more importantly, from a health aspect, actually, there's no question it adds years to your life. Looking at our club, for instance, that can field 2 over 80s basketball teams is just in itself amazing. And those people just keep going. So, we all aspire to I think, keep playing sport. We feel the benefits when we do. Those that aren't actually participating, all I can do is encourage you to do it, because once you get involved, you'll keep doing it, and it's good. It's good for you. It's good for everyone.
Yeah, well said. And Kerry, lastly, across to yourself, what words of encouragement do you have for the women and men that we hopefully will get at the tournament in July?
Oh, it's probably the best thing you can do, to be honest. Like I said before, you play competitive to about 30, 32, and you think you've retired then, but then the Masters come along and you meet good people, you make long-time friends, and you get to play some really good basketball too. And I just think get out there, and when I tell people we got 2, 3 over 80s or 75s, and they just can't believe it, and they sort of think about, oh geez, I might pick up this game. So I guess just get the word out, and especially try and get a bit more younger players in to encourage the club. But no, it's the best. Yeah, I wouldn't do anything else.
Thanks, Kerry. To both of you, Greg and Kerry, thanks so much for your time today. We really appreciate your efforts, contribution to the game, whether that's administering Myths and Legends or coaching or otherwise playing. We certainly appreciate Myths and Legends putting on this year's Bulleen Annual Masters Handicap Tournament on the 6th and 7th of July. And play hard, gents. We'll see you on the court.